Tonight I'd like to share with you a little bit about the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Not the entire path, but some aspects of it. And so the Buddha gave us a kind of a recipe on how to live. It's listed out in the Eightfold Path, which on first impression seems like a random list of items. It doesn't really immediately make sense as a lifestyle towards happiness, lifestyle for happiness and liberation. So this Eightfold Path starts with one's understanding. It's samma ditthi. Ditthi is to see, and samma is right. Usual translation, also skillful. I'm told it's taken from music theory, meaning harmonious. So if you're not seeing things in harmony with the universe, things are not going to work out too good. So right seeing how things really are. And there are a number of angles to that if one fully understood would bring enlightenment, any one of them. But an important aspect is at least getting karma, cause and effect. Now, you may have heard you reap what you sow. Anyone from Charlotte might have heard that. It's so true. You reap what you sow. If you're doing actions that are coming out of an evil state of mind, hateful, angry, greedy, etc. state of mind, and then what comes of that is not going to be good. It's going to be, you're going to reap it with tears, with sorrow. And if you're acting from a pure state of mind, a pure state of heart, then only goodness can come from that ultimately. Maybe in the short term it might be not so clear. But at least getting the basics of karma, one can begin to make spiritual progress. Without that, not so much. And so, number one of the Eightfold Path is right understanding. Number two is right intention, or harmonious or skillful thinking or intention. So given that you understand how things come together, that there's karma, that what you do matters, then you're well advised to not be grasping, not to be hateful, not to be cruel. So right intention is intention of a more of an open-hearted letting it go. Intention of loving kindness, intention of compassion. So let's say you start every day with those intentions. Let's say you start every hour, every minute. If all the time you were working off of those kinds of intentions, of open-hearted letting go, of loving kindness, of compassion, I think that might kind of set things up very nicely to be developing spiritually and to have a pretty good life starting to happen. Third is right speech. Fundamental to right speech is honesty. We can't be honest about very basic things with our words. How can we start to get honest about our motivations and the deeper movements of our mind? Fourth is right action. And fifth is right livelihood. So right speech, action, and livelihood are about how we operate in the world. How are we treating people? Are we really being harmless? Or are we really having intentions of open-hearted letting go, loving kindness and compassion? How are we acting? And then we come to the one I really want to focus on this evening, which is number 6, right effort. And that's a terrible, terrible translation. I don't know what the translation should be, but it just makes you think that you're just supposed to will yourself into some other state, and it's nothing like that at all. So, the right effort is the movement of your mind out of unwholesome states and into wholesome states. But first we have to even know what unwholesome and wholesome states are. And I'm going to leave this up to you a bit. Somebody tell me one unwholesome state, a mental state that you know for a fact can't be good. Word, give me one.
Anger.
Anger. What's another one? Jealousy. You bet. Greed. Are those the only ones? Hatred. What else?
Ignorance.
Oh, yes, thank you. Ignorance.
Unforgiveness.
Yes, hard-hearted, not forgiveness. What else?
Craving.
Huh?
Craving.
Craving. Yes, yes, yes.
Pride.
Pride.
Delusion.
Delusion. Very good.
Impatience.
Impatience.
Obsession.
Obsession.
Denial.
Denial. You guys are coming up with some good ones.
Sloth.
Sloth. Excellent.
Gluttony.
Gluttony. Just think of any mental state that's kind of painful. You'll come up with some more. What else?
Shame.
Impatience. What was that?
Shame.
Shame. Good one. I wish I was... Oh, I am writing them down. I've got my tape recorder on. Good. Doubt. Very good.
Denial.
Very good. Yes. Guilt. You guys are awesome.
Fear.
Fear. Pridefulness.
Disgust.
Yeah, very good. Depending on the type of disgust. Like if I'm disgusted at the idea of doing wrong, then that would be a wholesome disgust. But kind of like a judgmental, I'm better than that horrible suffering being disgust would be very unwholesome.
Judgmental.
Judgmental. Very good. I don't remember. Lust, and I want to add agitation and worry and sadness and grief. That's hard to hear, but the roots of the unwholesome are greed, hate, and delusion. So anything out of one or more of these is in the unwholesome camp. Greed, hate, delusion. The wholesome camp come out of non-greed, non-hate for clarity. Let's hear some wholesome ones. Let's list up the happiness in the room here. Let's hear some wholesome ones. Joy. Generosity. Love. But it has to be like that universal agape, brotherly, sisterly, I love everybody and everything love, not that I love you, I hate them. Right? Okay. Just got to get clear about that. What else? Compassion.
Peacefulness.
Peacefulness.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Equanimity. Excellent. Kindness.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Assuming it's not that forgiveness that everybody forces you to do when you've been injured in certain ways. Not that one. But you know, where there's real peace of mind, kind of like, okay, I can let this go, forgiveness.
Would autonomy be one?
I think so, yeah, good.
Sincerity.
Sincerity.
Generosity.
Yes, indeed.
Friendship.
Friendship.
Joyous.
Joyous.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. And patience. And opposite of jealousy. We don't have a word for that in English, so we cobble together phrases like joy at what others, joy at the joy of others, joy at what others have, altruistic happiness, altruistic joy. So non-jealousy, mental state. There's more. Non-agitation. We could put a non on there to all the bad states. Clarity. Compassion, I think that, yes, again.
Openness.
Eh?
Openness.
Openness, very good. Open-mindedness, open-hearted. Listening. You guys really do have great lists here. And then there's another that I was about to say one and I lost it. Did we say patience already? Energy, that was it, because someone said sloth. Like, yes, energy. Yeah, energy was mentioned by the Buddha many, many, many times.
Humility.
Humility, yes. Not the same as humiliation. Humility.
Will.
Determination. Because like will in the sense of I'm going to force my will is no good at all. But that, like a firm determination, is a very wholesome, powerful mental state. Thank you.
Sympathy.
Sympathy.
Laughter.
I like that. So that'll go along with happiness and joy and laughter and bliss, peace, serenity, uplift, gladness. Yeah. Uh-huh. And the mind getting very still, with, very quiet and still with meditation as well. What was this?
Empathy.
Empathy. Very good.
Courage.
Courage. Yay, the new one.
Mindful.
Mindful. Oh, how did we forget that one? I wasn't being mindful.
Sincere.
Sincere. Okay, so we're just going to cut it off, but you see how many wonderful words there are. Where is I going with this? Okay. So imagine that you could be, assuming you don't have like particular terror of small spaces, imagine that you could be stuck in an elevator for an hour with someone who has all the negative mental states. He's just running his mouth, and he's foul, and he's loud, and he's mean and nasty and cruel and lustful and rageful and vindictive and judgmental and every negative state you can imagine. He's just bursting with it. Or you could be stuck with 5 hours with someone who has all the opposite qualities, who's loving and kind and sweet and compassionate and generous and altruistic and patient and just all the good side. What do you say? 5 hours with Mr. Wholesome or 1 hour with Mr. Unwholesome? Who wants 5? Who's going to go for the 1 hour with like the most horrible mental state person in the whole world? Someone's actually going to do that? Now, I know we already tried to weed out the people that had a particular fear of small spaces. So those don't get to vote. I think most of us are going to agree on 5, right? Because it's so terribly, terribly difficult to be in a closed space with someone who has all these negative mental states. But you are trapped with you. And you cannot just unzip this thing and walk out of it and be free of any negative mental states that were tormenting, right? So this is actually much worse than an elevator, and you're stuck with it for your entire life, and the next life, and the next ones too. There's no escape. Much worse than an elevator. So we need to work with this, and we need to fix this, right? So the Buddha's Eightfold Path, if we've been working with it up to this point, we're already being harmless in the world, and we're already going with some really good intentions, and we really get it about the karma. Okay, we're here at this step 6. The first thing is to prevent those unwholesome states. The second thing is to overcome them when they happen despite our best efforts. The third thing to do is to develop the wholesome mental states, because nobody stays neutral. And the fourth thing to do is to make the beautiful mental states a habit. That's the game plan. That is what step 6 is, the fourfold right effort. So what is effort to prevent unwholesome, evil states of mind? It's everything you can think of. It's not walking into the bar if you're somebody who needs to not be drinking. That's really big self-protection against negative mental states. Wouldn't that be? It's not starting. Let's see. It's prevention. Getting yourself a good night's sleep. It's prevention of all the negativity that could fall on your head the next day when you're, not doing well. It's eating right, isn't it? Isn't that part of prevention? So basic self-care, it would be part of prevention. Prevention would be not initiating a conversation with the person who's going to make you really mad because you haven't, mastered all these mental states yet, right? So that would be a self-protection. Can you think of any other kinds of examples?
Turning the news off.
That might be a great asset. Yeah. So the thing we do is to study one's own life. Study cause and effect. The mind is a thing. Did you know that? We have the mind, we have the body. The mind is a thing. It's a phenomena, not one solid thing. It's changing conditions, but it's phenomena. You work with it, and you look for the cause and effect of what impacts your mind in this or that way. So if I go down this course of action, the results may not be so good in terms of my mental states. If I go through this course of action, the results may be good in terms of my mental states. Okay, I can do this. Or I could do that course of action if I take care of myself in these additional ways. Earplugs, for example, can be a great asset in certain circumstances. So there's prevention. Well, you've done all of the preventing you can do, and you suddenly look around and realize that you've been, angry for the last whatever number of minutes. You're in it. You tried to avoid the hole in the road, now you fell in it anyway. Okay, what do? First, you know that you need to do something. That's important, because if you think the unwholesome states are laudable, if you think they're a good thing, then you're not going to want to get out of them. So first you have to have the awareness, the mindfulness, that this isn't what we want to be doing. This isn't where we want to be in our mental states. And you make effort. What effort? Whatever effort works for you. Some people, all they have to do is reach in their wallet, open it up, and see a picture of their grandkids, and they're good. That really works for some people. Or their cat. Whatever it is that works for you, you know what rescues you, and you know what you're particularly vulnerable to. Some people are vulnerable to lust. Some are vulnerable to anger. Some are vulnerable to thinking they're really important. That's delusion, folks. Like, what are you vulnerable to? What's the hole that you need to be walking around in the road, right? That's part of prevention. Okay, well, you're in it. What strategies you need depend on what it is, and whether it's one of your particularly, significant weak points. Because you have to take stronger action to help yourself with the ones that you're more vulnerable to, perhaps. You study you. You study your habits. You study your reactions. You study what works for you to save you from negative mental states. The Buddha listed 4 mental states that are particularly powerful for rescuing a person from negative mental states, and we'll each have our own favorite. And that's the 4 Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, opposite of jealousy, that other one, that altruistic joy, or equanimity. So those 4, there's some people who can just go straight to equanimity, and I just stare at them and but I can do compassion. Compassion, that's my go-to, that's my touchstone. So by whatever means is necessary, we get up out of those negative mental states. We go to positive mental states, wholesome states. We develop whatever wholesome state wasn't there. We make it happen. How? Study yourself and figure it out. Figure out how you can go to wholesome mental states. So many ways. There's many, many talks in that. And then we make a further habit. We want to dwell in the beautiful mental states moment to moment to moment, day to day to day, to where you could go weeks at a time without dropping into a negative mental state. This is doable. That's not sainthood, that's just skill. Did you hear me? It's just skill with your mind. And if you have started making the wholesome, beautiful mental states a continuous habit for even a little bit of the time, when you drop into the unwholesome mental state, it is not comfortable. You see it as a spiritual emergency. You see it as the spiritual emergency that it is. Because folks, every negative mental state, whatever one you're in, the others are like a wheel with spokes. They're all easily accessible. You're in jealousy, rage is just right. It's just right at hand. For example, the same thing is true of the wholesome mental states. They're all close at hand. You know, you're in a state of bliss and you're generous, right? Like it's all very closely tied together. So when you drop into a negative mental state, it is an emergency because every terrible mental state, you're at risk of right then. When you're in the wholesome state, you're at happy risk of any beautiful mental state. How wonderful is that? And so that is the talk I wanted to share with you this evening about the steps in the Eightfold Path, and particularly number 6, step 6 of the Eightfold Path, your fourfold right effort. And I hope that your efforts bring you to ever-increasing happiness.